the 80s, or what we call the Generation X. What is your favorite treat growing up? Is it the Jack and Jill cheese curls paired with pop cola? Or is it the really chewy Tootsie Roll? Or those chocolate pretzels? Or could it be curly tops? Oh, I'm sure you're now thinking of all those delicacies that we used to enjoy as kids. While you're thinking what made you drool or get excited as a child, do allow Filipindian Tales to take you back and reminisce all those beautiful memories that we had growing up in the 80s. Welcome to another episode of Filipindian Tales. I sincerely thank you for joining me in this episode where we will be joined by a few Batang 80s to help us reminisce the beautiful days of growing up during that time when life is much simpler than it is today. Before we continue, if you haven't done so already, please click that red subscribe button and the bell next to it so that you can be notified whenever I put up a new video. My name is Gemmarie Tibayan Venkataramani, a certified Batang 80s and proudly a member of the Generation X. So are you part of the Generation X just like me? Well, let me first clarify who belong to the Generation X. The Generation X are those who were born in the late 60s till the early 80s. So if you're hovering around late 30s and early 50s, then you're probably a member of the Generation X. And for easy understanding, the members of the Generation X are those who are slowly getting their hair salt and pepper just like me. I am proud to say that our generation, the Generation X, are those who still had the time of our life playing in the mud and enjoying the outdoors, unlike the kids these days who are very much glued to their gadgets. So what prompted me to come up with this episode? Well, it is one newspaper article that I found very recently. It's not really a recent article because I think it was dated about 6 months ago, but it's about the relaunch of my favorite chocolate growing up, the Surge chocolate. Well, memories started flooding and I began to recall those wonderful days when I used to enjoy this delicious treat. For the millennials, this may sound shallow because this is just another chocolate while there are so many other chocolates already in the market. But you don't understand what Surge meant to us, the Generation X or the Batang 80s. My earliest memory of Surge was when I was in elementary school, around grade 2 or 3. Whenever I get good grades at school, my mom would always give me 5 pesos to buy whatever I want. And of course, my first choice would be to buy a chocolate. And at that time, I had only 2 choices in mind. It's either Curly Tops or Surge chocolate. But then, Curly Tops is a bit pricey because they normally come in a box of 12 and so it's a little more costlier than Surge. So I would settle with my second best choice, which is Surge chocolate, because this comes in individual pieces. And so the minute I get the 5 pesos from my mom, I would rush to the only place that sold Surge chocolate in our place. And that was the grocery store of Mamay Martin. So I would walk the stretch, which is about 50 meters from my house to the highway where the grocery is located. And I would proudly scream, "Manang, pabili po ng Surge!" All the 80s kids in Buho will remember who Manang is. She's the storekeeper of Mamay Martin's grocery store. So with my Surge in hand, I will probably walk back not to my home but to the playground where my friends will be there and I can proudly tell them that, you see, I have a Surge chocolate. And those times for me as a kid were priceless because not every day do we get those kind of treats. So now you can imagine my excitement when I found that Surge is coming back into the market. I'm sure you also had good memories of your favorite chocolates. Is Surge one of them? Do let me know in the comments down below. And yes, it was not difficult to find another person who had Surge as her favorite while growing up in the 80s. Here's Jennifer to tell us her story.
Hello everyone! Being a member of the Generation X or what they call BATANG 80s, naalala ko na during those times na elementary days, whenever we are waiting for our service na doon sa harapan ng gate ng school namin, merong tindahan doon na hindi ko na maalala yung pangalan ng may-ari ng tindahan, pero alam ko nanay yun ni Maricon. Classmate ko si Maricon. Tapos, whenever na uuwi kami, kailangan i-save ko yung baon ko for the day kasi para mabili ko yung paborito kong candy or chocolate bar, which is Surge. Dalawa yung variation ng Surge. Isang milk chocolate at saka isang Crispies. Pero ang favorite ko doon is yung milk chocolate. Ang ginagawa ko doon is pagkatanggal ko ng balat ng chocolate bar, ginagawa ko, niro-roll ko siya pabilog, parang chocolate truffles, o di ba social? Tapos, doon ko na lang siya kinakagat. Para social, di ba? Na chocolate truffles yung kinakagat ko. Pero, yun lang kasi ang afford ko eh. Kasi, hindi ko afford, nung mga panahon na yun, hindi ko afford yung mga Toblerone, pang ano yun eh, yayamanin yun eh. Pero,
well, let's hope that when Surge finally comes back in the market, it still tastes the same the way it was when we were young, and I can assure you that it is comparable in taste to any of the international brands or the most expensive brand of chocolate that's there in the market right now. Oh wait, another Batang 80s is here to share her thoughts on the beautiful memories growing up with Pinoy treats.
My childhood days in my little buho. That was lots of fun. My memories with my neighbors and my playmates. Not to mention our bahay-bahayan, our luto-lutuan, our picnic, and our old games for both boys and girls. We were always playing under the sun. My children now does not know the simple stuffs we enjoy before during our childhood days, and also now they only recognize all the fast foods like fries, burgers, milk teas, and shakes. But mind you, don't underestimate my memories of the 80s. Our Toblerone and Hershey's before is the Surge. You know Surge is? That was the softest and creamiest chocolate I ever tasted during my childhood days. And also the favorite of Nanay Lydia, the Viva coated the caramel candy. She could not finish her meal without that. Also the Balikutya and Tira-Tira from Kaising's famous mini store in Buho. I could not forget that favorite place in our Buho. And also may mga kalaro. That was our happy place, the Kaising store. And every Christmas party during my elementary days, Curly Tops is my top choice. I made sure I have gifts for my friends. That little tiny box made of little cup chocolates, mini chocolates. I could not forget my childhood memories. My memories with them is as sweet as those candies. I miss them all.
Wow, that was a trip down memory lane indeed. And she mentioned Viva. Who can say no to the caramel goodness of Viva? Biba is a hard caramel candy wrapped around the chocolate paste. It always came in its orange packaging, and I can never forget that this used to be my grandpa's favorite, and he will always have a handful of biba in his pocket, ready to give away to kids surrounding him. And of course, another treat that Lay mentioned is the balikutsa. Balikutsa is another favorite that is always available at Kaising's sari-sari store. Balikutsa is a hard candy made from cooked, molten, and sticky sugarcane molasses. This candy that looks like small logs of wood are normally stored on those big glass jars, and our little hands will normally reach for it until we find our choice of balikutsa, because they come in different sizes, so we'll have to choose the thicker ones or the best ones in the lot, and then it will be wrapped in the newspaper that will be handed to us by the storekeeper. And yes, before I forget, Lay mentions the store of Kaising, the sari-sari store of Kaising, that has brought a lot of good memories for us Batang 80s of Buho. Anyone who grew up in Buho during the 80s will never forget the sari-sari store of Kaising and all the goodies and all the beautiful memories that we had enjoying those goodies from her store. And of course, now let's discuss about the curly tops that I mentioned earlier. All of us have very fond memories of curly tops, another favorite of mine while growing up. But then again, as I have mentioned earlier, curly tops was a little costly for us at that time because it always comes in a box of 12. And for you millennials out there, to understand curly tops more, it is something like the Reese's peanut butter cup but slightly smaller. So we can say that our Reese's was the curly top, or curly tops was the Reese's of our generation. When we mentioned Biba earlier, another candy came into mind because these two, to me, actually goes hand in hand. It's the candy mint. Another member of the Generation X talks about candy mint and her other favorite treats of the 80s.
Hi, I'm Noraline. I'm here to share with you my favorite candies and chocolates during the 80s. Wow, I was just 10 years old those years. Well, for candies, I like candy mint because I like those not so sweet but minty candies. For chocolates, well, it's none other than chocomalos. Noon kasing panahon na yon, mahal ang imported chocolates. Madalang makakain ng imported chocolates unless may uuwi galing abroad. And available in the market is chocomalos. Why I love it is because of the chocolate-coated malos. Usually, that's the last part I eat. Kasi, it's soft and it melts in my mouth. Also, it's not that so sweet because of the mallows. That's why I love chocomalos.
Wow, yes, chocomalos. I completely forgot about that. I remember those really yummy chocomalos. But of course, I wouldn't trade my three favorites for it. One among my favorite chocolates is Cloud9. This is Philippines' version of Snickers. This one has layers of creamy caramel, soft nougat, and crunchy peanuts covered in thick coating of rich milk chocolate. I remember introducing this to my daughter, and she too loved Cloud9. Philippines' answer to M&M's is our very own Nips. One interesting fact is that the name Nips came from its anagram spin, which explains the process on how these chocolates were made. And before I nearly forget, choc-nut. Who can ever forget choc-nut? This is something that we buy for pittance. I think it was costing like 5 cents at that time. And of course, where do we buy it? There you go again, at Kaising Sari-Sari store. Choc-nut is a powdered chocolate molded in a bite-sized form, just enough to fit in our very small mouth. And yes, choc-nut is available up to these days, and I'd say it hasn't changed in its taste. It would have, had some changes in its appearance, in its wrapping and all, but it's still taste the same yummy chocolate that we used to love as a child. In fact, whenever I go home to Philippines, I would always pack my suitcase with boxes and boxes of choc-nuts, and wherever we are, whenever we see an Asian store, they will surely sell choc-nuts, and I will always haul them back home. Speaking of traditionally Asian treats, here's Gilbert, another Batang 80s, to talk about her favorite treats.
Ang naalala kong candy, yung tira-tira. Tawag nila tira-tira, mahaba, mababaluktot, parang pencil yung laki. Yun, tama. Tapos, bubuksan, kakainin mo. Masarap. Pero wala na ngayon. Tsaka yung ano pa, Tootsie Roll. May maliit lang, tapos yung medyo merong ganyan. Masasarap, pero wala na. Na kinainan epe.
Woo! Oh yeah, tira-tira. Who can forget those? But then I think I tend to move away from those sticky candies that sticks to the mouth, and that's maybe the reason why I almost forgot about tira-tira. But yes, I used to like them too, and so with Tootsie Roll. And somehow a little exotic is Maripet's choice of her favorite treat while growing up in the 80s.
Yung candy or sweets na naaalala ko nung bata pa ako, every time na uuwi, before ako pumunta sa school service, talagang dadayuhin ko yung tindahan sa tabi nung simbahan na school namin. Talagang pupuntahan namin ng mga classmates ko yun. Ang tawag dun sa candy, yung sundot kulangot. Bali, para siyang coconut jam. Ewan ko kung ano yun, pero parang nasa bamboo siya, tas may stick. Kaya siya tinawag na sundot kulangot. Kasi parang sinusundot mo siya para makuha mo yung candy sa loob. Na parang, yun nga, na sticky na jam. And yun, parang wala nang ganun ngayon. Namimiss ko yun.
Somehow, the sundot kulangot didn't really appeal to me, just like tira-tira. Maybe because, again, these are sticky stuff, and I tend to avoid those kind of, treats while growing up. But then, Maripet, to each his own, right? But here, let me tell you about my other favorite candies. First, let me tell you about the butter ball. Who can ever forget this butterscotch in a ball of sweetness? You can have it in your mouth for days. Yes, believe me, I'm not kidding. It's not hard, but it's really delicious. And however long it is in your mouth, you will still have that delicious butterscotch taste, always. My next favorite candy is Frutos. This is the Philippines version of Frutella. And of course, just like Frutella, it comes in different flavor, different fruits flavor, and it is evident, the flavor is evident in its cover. So, an orange flavor will come in its orange packaging, a strawberry flavor will come in its pink packaging, and an apple flavor in a green packaging, and so on and so forth. So, Frutella is something that I used to enjoy as a kid, when I was already in my 6th grade, something like that. The third one of my favorite is White Rabbit. I'm still unsure if I should have eaten the wrapper or not, because at that time, we were so confused why and how can we eat the wrapper of a chocolate. But then, I even asked my chemistry teacher if it's really safe to eat the wrapper, and according to her, yeah, it is really safe because it's made of, edible rice paper. But, as a young child, we were just, our mind could not, wrap around that idea of eating a wrapper. And any of you remember Mick? Well, this is that small sachet of powder goodness. It comes with a straw, and my mom would always really be upset with me whenever I eat Mick because my blue-colored skirt will almost look like it's white because of all the powder scattered around my skirt. But yeah, Mick is one thing that made our childhood really fun because we used to blow this powder with each other, on each other's faces, on each other's dress, and it's just everywhere. So Mick was everywhere for us, and I really don't know if it's still there, but it is something that's a lot of fun while growing up. Do let me know, if Mikmik is still there. Do write it in the comment down below. And of course, haw flakes. Do you remember those Chinese flat candy bread that somehow made us sacrilegious at an early age? Because I remember we used to play with it like, it was the holy host that is given to us in the holy mass. So one of our friends will act as a priest, and one by one this will be put on our mouth, just like receiving the Holy Communion in the mass. It was a lot of fun. It comes on those stuck up, like a barrel, a small barrel, and there'll be at least, I think, 20 or so of those thin bread, like, sweetness in that. So yeah, that was the haw flakes or haw flakes. I don't know how they even pronounce that, but yes, as a kid, we used to enjoy the haw flakes. And finally, don't we all love ice candy? And who can forget the frosty ice candy? Frosty ice candy, just like many of the other candies, came in fruit flavors, and so it came in different colors as well. And I remember, it was also in such a nice packaging that it is very easy to actually break it and share with your best friend. Money was not always easy while we were growing up. And treats are aptly called treats because, we don't get to enjoy them often. Most of the time, we would have to save our baon or our allowances from school in order for us to buy these special treats that we all love as kids. But at the same time, life was a lot simpler then. We were happy with whatever we get our hands into. Just like Augie, and here he is to tell us his experience.
Anong naalala ko nung bata pa ako, mga 3 years ago. Wala, hindi naman ako mahilig sa candy, pero usually ang halos nakakain lang naming candy ay yung kending pinya. That's homemade candy made by our Lola Isyon. Because binebenta nila yon, kaya habang ginagawa, libre kain. Kaya doon lang kami nakakain ng candy. Yung namang nabibili sa mga tindahan, usually, ang nabibili namin yung alam mo ba yung stork? Kasi yung stork, panlaban yun para hindi ka masuka sa biyahe pag nagbabas ka papuntang Manila o kaya sa malayong lugar. Kaya yun lang ang talagang nabibili ng stork or yung candy mint. Basta anything na mint para hindi ka masuka sa malayong biyahe.
Oh, I fondly remember those pineapple candies, or what we call the kending pinya, because my mom used to make them whenever my tatay Kiko sends us a lot of pineapple that were more than enough what we can eat. So the leftover or the extras, my mom would always make them into pineapple candies, and they were really, really yummy. And yes, as we say in Tagalog, diskartehan lang yan. If there is a will, you will always find a way. Dennis here talks about some kind of barter system that used to happen then, so that he gets to enjoy his favorite treats.
Ang pinaka naalala ko na paborito ko nung bata ko na pagkain na chichireo candy, yung mag-iipon talaga ako ng bote o kaya dyaryo, tapos ipapalit ko dun sa yung parang cheese curds nila o kaya yung parang sweet corn na bilog-bilog, tapos ilalagay nila yun sa sa nakarolyo ng dyaryo na parang ice cream cone. Yun, isa yun sa mga inaabangan ko nung bata ako, lalo na pagka walang pasok.
See, didn't I tell you that life was a lot simpler back then? We were a happy bunch of 80s kids. We didn't have much, but we had enough to make our memories stand out. We didn't have fast food, Jollibees, McDonald's, Greenwich, Shakey's, or whatever it is that we have now. And we didn't have, those imported chocolates also that, is quite in abundance right now, and the kids really enjoy them. But we had food that, that brings us back memories of growing up in a much simpler environment and food that sparks memories of all the days that we will forever cherish. So then again, I ask you, are you a BATANG 80s or part of the Generation X? Do comment down below what are the treats that you enjoyed growing up. And together, let's reminisce those happy days. For now, I would like to thank you for joining me and the Filipindian Tales family in this episode. And once again, I would like to remind you to keep yourself and your family safe all the time. Bye for now!